Hourly segment is brought to you by Real Estate Revealed with Randy Barcella, Sunday mornings starting at 8.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. The matter of removing a president from office, serious business that is being handled by serious people, not sensationalists, no, not storytellers, responsible elected officials carrying out their oversight duties, responsible journalists reporting factual information so the public is brought along in the process. Is that what's happening? Tucker Carlson has a pretty good answer to that question. His show last night put together a nice montage for us, or his producer did. I don't think Tucker was probably cutting up the clips.
He was all over.
But
spent all day working.
Yeah, right. The memo that all of the leftist pundits got to make the comparison between Trump and a mafia boss. That's the metaphor of choice that we're to use. And then, of course, you capstone it with the impersonation of a mafia boss by the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, just as he is about to gather testimony from the Director of National Intelligence over a whistleblower complaint we're supposed to take seriously in the context of impeaching a president and potentially removing him from office, which, of course, obviously is also a serious matter. This is all very serious, right? It's not sensationalized.
The same people who spent 2 years writing Russia collusion fan fiction are outraged once again. Or did they ever stop being outraged? Probably not. In any case, they're not telling us that the Trump presidency is really Godfather Part 4.
Like any mafia boss, the president didn't need to say, that's a nice country you have. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
To people who see this kind of stuff in movies, you see mob bosses doing it. Is this something that presidents do?
You're right. We see this from mob bosses. We do not see this from presidents.
If you gave this to me, I'd say it's a typical transcript of what I get that I would have put into evidence in the course of a mob boss trial. I mean, it is right out of Don Corleone.
People have analogized this kind of conversation to when, a godfather would say, I want you to do something. Everyone knows what is involved here.
Donald Trump sought to run U.S. foreign policy the way Tony Soprano ran his crime family, except less elegantly.
Part of this is our fault in the media. We set up these just terrible incentives where you don't get on television unless you say extreme and mindless things. What's surprising, though, is how so many of these extreme and mindless statements come from people with long and apparently distinguished careers, debasing themselves in order to be on television. Really, the prime example is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Adam Schiff of Burbank, California. He recently went into a kind of trance and delivered his own prophetic version of what he believed must have happened between President Trump and the president of Ukraine. Watch this.
This is the essence of what the president communicates. We've been very good to your country, very good. No other country has done as much as we have. But you know what? I don't see much reciprocity here. I hear what you want. I have a favor I want from you, though. And I'm going to say this only 7 times, so you better listen good. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent, understand lots of it.
R.A. Fleischer tweeted about this. In a democracy, there is nothing more controversial than impeachment. It's not a laughing matter. It's not parody. It is divisive and will cause deep strife. So why would Adam Schiff fabricate information and behave like this, like you just heard? Schiff's behavior was disgraceful, said George W. Bush's former press secretary. Now, Adam Schiff wanted to make sure those of you watching at home understood that that was just Adam Schiff, comedic actor.
As an aside, I want to mention that my colleague is right on both counts. It's not okay, but also my summary of the president's call was meant to be at least part in parody.
This is something you don't joke around about, and you don't give hypotheticals. Because what if somebody's tuning in for the first time and then they hear that and think, "Oh my gosh," because a lot of people let other people think for them, and they're easily influenced. And if you just turned that on and saw that, you'd think, "Oh my gosh, what President Trump did it's reprehensible.
Yeah.
He should be impeached."
Mhm.
But that was a hypothetical. That was a fallacy. That was acting.
Well, he
Was
is
he trying to win some award, daytime Emmy award there?
Adam Schiff is part of the House Democrats not ready for primetime players, which of course includes Stephen KFC Cohn as well, who did his own political theater. You'll recall when A.G. Barr failed to assent to showing up to a hearing where they wanted to query him about the whole Mueller report imbroglio. And he brought a bucket of chicken and was eating a drumstick from the dais and put like a chicken statue where Barr would have sat if he would have shown up for the hearing. But these are serious people, though, not sensationalists, not partisan fanatics, and we're supposed to take them seriously. Is that right? For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by David Drucker, senior political correspondent for the Washington Examiner, WashingtonExaminer.com, which has provided wall-to-wall coverage on all of this as well. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Good to be here.
What about Adam Schiff yesterday, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and that performance?
Well, look, I'm curious what some of his Democratic colleagues think of that performance, just because it's unnecessary and it undermines the case he's trying to make. I mean, the substance of some of this information, particularly the summary transcript of the call, there are issues with it. And there are issues, at least, that Democrats can raise legitimately and discuss one way or the other. When you do things like he did, and when you try and blow things up beyond what you have before you know what you have, it makes it harder to shine a light on the issues that some Democrats and frankly some Republicans have with the content of the phone call.
Well, with respect to Schiff, he's sort of inveterate in this respect, isn't he? I mean, this is the same individual who spent 2 years saying that he had evidence of Trump's collusion with the Russians in 2016, evidence that was never presented, evidence that Bob Mueller never found, and yet and then Adam Schiff just goes on to the next gambit, and we're supposed to, again, as I said, take him seriously.
Right. Well, with Adam Schiff in particular, he's always been a little bit ahead of where the information is. And again, I think, there are a lot of things that the president does or says that are questionable or that rub people the wrong way or make them take a second look.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I think you undermine a case of criticism against how he operates, if you are concerned with how he operates, when you embellish it. And actually, with a lot of things the president does, you don't need to embellish it. I mean, you can just talk about the substance. I was talking to one Democrat yesterday in the House who has not been bellicose about any of this. And, you can disagree with her, but she was just making a substantive case for why she agrees with the impeachment inquiry. And I think that if you are going to do this, which they are, they would be in a much better position if they stick to the information. And they can say that it warrants an impeachment inquiry. Republicans can disagree, but I think voters would, over time, take them more seriously if they just stick to the information such that it is, and don't try and get ahead of their skis and start to talk about things that they don't know or, put on dramatic performances.
And with respect to the impeachment inquiry, Nancy Pelosi's pronouncement earlier this week, and now we've got the release of the call, or the release of the whistleblower complaint. I mean, is she put herself in a position where there is no place to retreat to, that she is going to have to, at some point, because of the pressure from within her caucus, have a formal impeachment vote? They're going to have to move to impeach this president. Her caucus is going to demand it.
Well, I tend to think that based on how what motivated the Democrats that were not in favor of impeachment to then become in favor of impeachment, combined with where the progressive base of the party was, I have a hard time seeing how they don't vote to impeach. Even though some of the more serious members of the Democratic caucus are discussing this as an investigation that they hope brings about evidence that will then determine whether impeachment itself is warranted or not. I just don't see how they don't end up doing it based on their view of the information that moved them to this point. You know, and I think Nancy Pelosi has been wisely cautious about impeachment all along. I think this reminds me a little bit of when House Republicans decided to try and defund Obamacare with the government shutdown. And I remember then Speaker John Boehner didn't think it was a good idea, but at some point there were too many House Republicans that were going to do it with or without him, and so he had to just get out in front and lead it. And I think in a sense that's what Nancy Pelosi had to do. I don't think it was really up to her anymore. I think she held it back as long as she could. And so, now they have to conduct this investigation, and if they're smart about it, they'll try and just stick to what the facts are. They won't embellish them, and they'll hope that they can convince swing voters and independents who have been dubious of impeachment, even though they don't like the president all that much, that it's a good idea. If they can do that, long term, they'll end up, politically not in necessarily a bad place. But this starts out where they're behind the eight ball in that. Until now, and all the data we've had, the persuadable voters, even if they don't like Trump, have not thought impeachment was warranted.
And the other problem is that they got out over their skis already. I mean, not only with the calls for impeachment, the gotcha calls earlier this week before the transcripts were released. So they're making these calls not knowing what's actually contained, not having read them at least, just sort of rumor and innuendo. But then Nancy Pelosi says, and this was a quote from Pelosi that Devin Nunes read in his opening statement yesterday at House Intel, that, basically, Groucho Marx style, these are our impeachment charges. If you don't like them, we have others. And she still has the Durham report to potentially contend with that may have probative information on this topic, too.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think Democrats would have been better off as a political matter broadly, although their own base would have really been pushing them. But if they had let the transcript come out, let the whistleblower complaint come out, let more evidence come out, and let the focus be on that, right? So everybody's just discussing what Trump did, whether it was right or wrong, and then you move to impeachment. So what's happening right now is Republicans are able to say, yeah, but this doesn't warrant impeachment, and the argument is really half about the president and half about the wisdom and justification of impeachment. And so I think it's a little bit harder of an argument at the outset. And now they have to make the case. I mean, I would say that there are issues with the transcript, and they can make that an issue. It's just, can they reach the bar of convincing a majority of voters that it is impeachable? That is a challenge for them.
He is David Drucker, senior political correspondent for the Washington Examiner, WashingtonExaminer.com. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Want your home's furnace to stay safe and reliable? And want to prevent any potential problems before they happen? At your local 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning, we